Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me. We're gonna take a really quick look at what was in the August kit. Mine just showed up. Today is September 15th. We thought it was lost. It showed up today, so I am going to do a 5 cards 1 kit video, but I really wanted to quickly remind everybody what actually comes in the kit, and then we'll create with it. So I'm gonna pull out the pieces here so we can kind of look at what all comes in there. So there's the idea sheet that has all the really beautiful cards that the team designed. And then we have cardstock in a couple of colors. Sorry if you guys can hear some background noise. My cats are trying to break into the room and my husband's playing some video games. So, all right, so we have a piece of 110-pound Neenah Solar White. And then we also have lemon chiffon, navy, and I believe this is Gamma green. So those are the colors that come in the kit. There's also a piece of acetate, so you can make a shaker card if you want to. So here's a piece of acetate there that also comes in the kit. And there's also this stencil. It's quite pretty. It has like lily pads and a cloud, and I believe this is supposed to be like a water detail, which is really beautiful. And we'll pull out the stamp set, which is always one of my favorite things. So there's the stamp set. How stunning is that? Hey guys, totally unforgettable. Toad as in frog or toad, which is beautiful. So there's also that stamp set. And there's a bunch of even other like little baubles. Like here's some googly eyes. I don't know what I'm gonna do with those, but those are super cute. And some Trinity stamps, lily pad leaps, like ephemera. I guess it's not ephemera, it's like embellishments. So there's all sorts of little pieces in there. That's super cute. I'll have to use some of those. And there's the pattern paper. I won't pull it all out. You guys will see it as we do makes, and I'm sure you've seen it all before, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick look at what came in this kit, since mine came quite late. But it did come, so that's really exciting. And of course you always get a candy, and it comes in that zippered bag. And then we have some Darice foam strips, which is awesome. I need some more of these, so that's perfect. I love those for sentiments. We have some envelopes here in soft navy and lemon chiffon. And then of course the stamped timber piece of card there. And then this beautiful embossing folder. This is Pinpoint Starlets. So how stunning is that? All right guys, so that's everything that comes in the kit. We will jump straight into the 5 cards. All right, so let's jump right into making the cards. So to start, I did cut down 2 slimline card bases. I just take my little trimmer and I cut off 4 inches of cardstock, and then I have a 7 by 8.5 inch card, and then I just score it 3.5, so I have a 3.5 by 8.5 inch slimline base. That's my preferred slimline base. I don't think there's any wrong way as long as you can get it to fit in an envelope. So I don't really think that it matters, but that is the one that I prefer. And I am going to make 2 slimline cards, so I just made the bases both at the same time. But the first one we're going to make is a slimline, and I think it turned out super cute. I hope you guys end up liking these cards. It was quite a process to get here, but I did get here in the end. All right, so I did cut down a piece of the lemon cardstock, and I'm just blending on some Wild Honey Distress Oxide ink with that cloud stencil that came in the kit. And I do use a few things that didn't come in the kit just because I have them, and because I think it's good to showcase whatever you want to use to make your cards. You don't have to stick to the kit, although I do try really hard to just mostly use things that came in the kit, just because I kind of feel like that's kind of the point. But I mean, like this kit doesn't have ink, it didn't have, certain things in it. So of course I did bring in things from my own stash, like dyes and such, but I think that it turned out really pretty. And I'm just flipping the stencil back and forth. So I went one way, and then you can see that I flipped it around, cleaned it off. Not well even, I just cleaned it off with like a microfiber cloth. I will wash it off when I'm done, like after I finish this card, because I use it again later in one of my other cards, and then I just, I'll wipe it off again, just so that, because I'm flipping it, I don't want to smear a bunch of ink into my background. And then I'm going to do one more cloud layer, because I think the slimlines look beautiful with this kind of 4 layer of clouds. And I love clouds, you guys. I have a cloud stencil, and I've used it several times in several of my other card makes before, but I'm pretty stoked that I now have a slimline version of this. So I cut out these little frames. You can kind of see at the top corner there the idea I had. And all of my images are colored. We're not going to do any coloring in this video simply because it's already a half an hour long. And there, if I was going to color in this video, it would have taken vastly longer. So There will be no coloring, but all of my images are colored with Karin or Karin Marker Brush Pros. And I'll have other videos coming up pretty quick with me using them because they're so nice. But yeah, this one specifically, that's what I use to color all of my images, kind of that like watercolor effect. And I just bought a small set to start with. I think it's got like, I don't even know, 12 colors in it or something. So that's all I have. So you're going to see some fairly similar cards throughout, colors throughout. And I am going to use my Barely Art glue to adhere pretty well to everything. This is like, right now, this is my preferred liquid glue because it comes with that super fine tip. And you'll see like when I go to glue down the frames and such, that really delicate tip is really useful because those frames are quite small. And to make those frames, I just used Tim Holtz, the like stacking rectangle dies where you get like 5 sets of the same 5 dies, and that's so handy in this because I could cut out my 4 frames at the exact same time. I didn't have to run it through several times, although you could if that's what you have. Really use what you have. You guys know I'm a big believer in using what you have in your stash, so that is just what I used here because I just got them and I thought they would make really neat frames for things and different layered pieces. And in the next card I'm also going to use the same ones. This card took me a minute to kind of get together. I struggled a little. So you're going to see in the next card that I'm going to have a bunch of little pieces cut down with this card kind of in the forefront there. It's not where I went with it. In the end, I did decide to do these frames simply because I didn't want to cover up more of the background than I needed to. So I didn't want to use the pieces that I cut out with those little dies, but we got there in the end. I think that's kind of all that matters. And I did pick out random images. Like I colored quite a few images. You'll see as we get through these cards that I colored like quite a few images. I sat on the couch with my husband and I just colored. that was what I did one night. So, and then I am going to bring in one of the sentiments from the stamp set. This, I love it. What does it even say? You make me smile. And this card makes me smile, guys. I love this card so much. I just think it turned out so happy. I don't know. I think it's probably the yellow. I just think yellow is such a happy color. And then I did pick out kind of 3 of the frogs. These are those smaller frogs. You guys see the one frog that kind of sitting on the leaf. That one I didn't like for this card. Otherwise, you could have had the 4 frogs. So I just opted to put 2 of the other elements that came in the kit kind of in that one, the 3rd frame, that kind of just made it look like there was something extra. So I'm going to call them frogs. I don't know if they're frogs. I don't know if they're toads. I mean, it's the Toadally Unfrogettable stamp set. So I'm going to assume that it's a little bit of both, and I'm just going to call them frogs throughout the video probably because that's what they make me think of. And I just adhered down my 4 little elements there in each frame, kind of hanging out of each frame. That was intentional just because I like having things sit outside of frames. I think that it looks really nice when they do that. So that's just kind of my preference with images like that. So I do have each of the elements sit kind of out of the frame, but not hindering too much of that really pretty cloud background. I think that really makes this card in the end. And it was a bit of an interesting time to get there. And I do bring in my own I think these are Moonshine Sequins from Simon Says Stamp. I love these sequins. They're probably my favorite sequins. These didn't come in the kit. You can see those little embellishments sitting off to the right of the screen there. Those came in the kit, but they didn't fit what I wanted here. I just wanted a little bit of extra shine in the card. You guys know that I love everything shiny. And so I kind of just wanted some extra shine in the card. So because of that, I opted to do these Moonshine Sequins instead of those kind of lily pads and whatnot embellishments. I will use those later. But I'm pretty sure I actually used these sequins on almost every card that I made throughout this video, simply because I love how shiny they are, but they don't steal the show. Like they add shine, but they're not they're not a color really. They're like white, or clear, I guess. So I think that they're just a really good addition to a card with a lot of color already going on. And then I'm going to hold this up so you guys can see it all close and personal there and up in the frame. And you can tell me what you think of this card. I'd love to know if you have a favorite when we get to the end of the 5. This one was probably my favorite until we made the rainbow card, which we'll see here in a little bit. I think that this was my favorite up until that card. But so here you'll see, like in the top left corner there, you can see that I'm kind of trying to figure out what I want to do behind my little guys. And this was one of my first ideas, but I didn't like that it covered up so much of the cloud background. But because I had already cut all these out, I couldn't waste them. So I'm using those the same stacking rectangle dies by Tim Holtz to cut these out into perfect rectangles. And it's just the biggest rectangle out of that set. And everything I use will be linked and listed down below. Obviously, as this is the August kit, you can't get this kit anymore, but you can get elements of it separately. So if any of that interests you, you can definitely check out the links down below in the description, and it'll take you over to check out any of these items. But yeah, you can't actually buy the kit at this point. And it's really funny, I just finished this video. Like this is September 25th, the morning of, quite early. It's about 2 a.m. in the morning, and I'm editing this to get it up for hopefully this morning. And my September card kit showed up today, like as in like Friday, the 24th. So that one won't be up before the end of the month, sadly. I would love it to, but sadly, being in Canada, I don't get things quick enough, so it won't be up during this month. But there will be a video with that coming soon as I can get there. But yeah, so I did also cut out some white panels, and I ran them through the embossing folder, but again, it covered up too much of the background. So this was another idea I had to kind of put behind those frogs to kind of ground them, but it just took up too much of the background, and I didn't like what it covered. So this was another idea I kind of played with, but in the end, again, you guys know that I went with the frames. But I'm showing you this because this is going to be a majority of the next card that we're making, which is an A2 sized card. And I cut down a piece of the soft navy to be slightly about 1/8 of an inch smaller than my A2 base. And you can see the layout that I kind of played with there. And then we're going to kind of just adhere these pieces down kind of like a patchwork, or kind of like an abstract paper piecing, I guess. So yeah, I just kind of used all of the squares that I had already cut out. And then the smallest white squares that I kind of used to break up some of the pattern, those are actually left over from the frames that I used from the first cards. So since I had all these card stocks and pieces cut out, I figured I really needed to use them. Now this is quite out of my norm. I don't generally do pattern paper cards. I don't generally do a lot of like paper piecing or that sort of style. Super neat style. I tend not to do it. So I kind of struggled a little bit with this card, but I think it's neat in its own way. It kind of came together in just a bit of a different thing. And then here I just wanted to add some texture to the little white pieces. So I'm kind of creating my own pattern with the little bugs that are out of the stamp set. And this is some weathered wood Distress Oxide. And I'm doing a 2nd generation stamping. So I ink up my stamps, stamp it off on that scrap piece of paper you can see I have off to the side there, and then stamp down onto my white cardstock. And that's just because I didn't want it to be very stark. I don't want them to steal the show. I want them to be background, but I want there to be some extra texture to these white panels. And I do actually opt to only use 2 of them. I have 3 of them here. I just flipped the 3rd one over and only used 2 of them so that it kind of matched like the Hoppy Birthday. And the Hoppy Birthday I stamped out in soft navy ink from Simon's Stamp, and just so it matched the matte panel that we have in the background there. So that's kind of my thought there. And then here we're going to adhere stuff. So I lost the footage of me actually adhering the squares together, but I'm sure you guys kind of get where that came from. I just kind of adhered them in different areas throughout the little 4 pieces or 5 pieces, and then adhered them down. So this is just me adhering the extra elements that I wanted to add on the card. And again, these are all stamps from that stamp set, and I just colored them like one night beside my husband. The only thing I did do though is that I did heat emboss them, because the Karin, however you want to say it, markers are quite juicy. I find that embossing it just made it way simpler for me not to have a struggle with the ink all bleeding out. So I just kind of added it after I heat embossed it. So, and then here you can see I'm once again bringing in those Moonshine Sequins. I love those sequins. This is my 2nd package of those, I believe. I know I'm on the pearl kick right now, but the pearls didn't really fit this card quite as well as I had hoped. And you're going to see me adhere down like 5 sequins here. I come back and add more later, just because I just felt like it neaded a few more. So I did. I'm not going to show you me adhering them, but I did adhere some more. You'll see it in the final picture when we're done here. But and then I adhered it down to my my A2 base. I have a tendency towards side fold cards. I don't think I've ever made a top fold card. That's just a preference I have. I don't know why. It doesn't really matter. You could do either. But yeah, this one I did a side fold A2 base, and then here I'm going to hold it up so you can check out card number 2. It's a little abstract, a little different, but I kind of like how it turned out. It's just different, which I think is kind of neat. I'm trying to embrace trying different styles and different techniques and different things just to have a lot of fun creating. It's kind of what the whole purpose of this is. So there is a close-up view of that card. So for the third one, I really wanted to make an ATC. A friend of mine mentioned that she would love an ATC from this kit, so I decided that that's what I was going to do. And I have one of the mica sprays from the Christmas release. I believe it's Snow Flurry, I think is what it's called. But it's from Tim Holtz's Christmas release number 2, I believe. I'll double check that. It's linked and listed down below, but it is the blue mica spray that came out in that set. And I also have salvaged patina. And those are the 2 colors I use. And you can see here that I'm going to dry it between my layers just because I wanted it to layer and not blend. And I add some splashes of water just to get a little more movement. And then I just heat set it again. And that's going to be my background for this. I am going to bring in the stencil again, though honestly, I don't know that you can really tell that the stencil's in the background at the end. Like it kind of gets lost a little bit, and I mean, we're going to cover it, but so I'm just going to stick a little bow tie on this little guy. I think that's super adorable. And then I gave him googly eyes just because I have them, although right here it's kind of creepy because they keep falling, so it looks like he has 4 eyes, but I did adhere some little googly eyes to this little guy. This is the only time I really use them. I don't know what to do with googly eyes. They're just something that I generally don't use, so I'm not really sure what I want to do with them, but I did want to use them because they are in the kit, and I think that on the ATC it kind of is cute. And then I did adhere him down to a lily pad just to give him some ground because I thought that the background would be water. That's why I kind of aimed for the blue colors. I kind of thought it would be water. And I bring in the stencil for the side that has kind of the watered area, as I used the cloud area twice in 2 different cards. But I'm going to bring in some Distress ink in, this is Picket Fence, which is the white, and kind of a stiff brush. And I kind of just brush it into the water area of the stencil. And you'll see when I'm finished, you can tell me if it really looks like water. I don't know. That was the goal, but honestly, I'm not sure that it quite comes across. Maybe if I had blended it differently, I don't know, but this is kind of what I was thinking. Like it was like waves or some kind of movement in the water, and I think it does give you a bit of an idea of movement, but I am going to adhere things down on top of it, so that does kind of obscure it a little bit, which kind of takes away from it a little bit, but I think that it's a neat idea. I just don't think that it ended up quite coming through the way I had hoped, but that's okay. And then I do bring in some Broken China Distress Oxide ink, and I just ink up the edges just to create a little bit of a border, more because I think that it helps finish the card than because it's necessarily. There you go. It's kind of just a way to kind of make it seem like this was a very intentional card, which it is. I mean, but you guys also know I like to border everything. And then I just splashed on some white acrylic spray. This is the Dylusions white linen spray, I believe. And I splashed it onto the background to add a little more texture into the colors. And you know that the ink would, of course, react to it. And then I'm going to adhere down my little 2 lily pads and my little frog or toad to the background as well. And I am going to cut off the excess that's hanging off of my artist trading card, simply because the only rule to an artist trading card is literally that you make it 2.5 by 3.5 inches. So if you have things hanging off of it, technically it's no longer the right size, right? So I'm going to cut the edge of both of my little lily pads that are hanging off, and then I'm going to actually adhere them back down. I'm just going to make them come out of the edge, so it looks like they were just more things going on outside of the card, which I also like to do. I think that that's a great way to continue a scene and make it look as though there's a lot more going on outside of just this one snippet that you get to see. And I think that's just a really fun way to create more interest in a piece. So I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to use my CutterBee scissors there just to snip off the extra bits. And I do have to kind of cut off a little bit of the toad or frog's leg. But I don't think you really even can tell because it was so a little like small amount of his leg. But here you can see I'm just going to adhere back down those 2 little pieces that I had to cut off just for fun. I mean, I didn't want to waste them. They were already there and I'd already colored them. And I spent a fair amount of time coloring them. You guys are going to see in the next card how much time I spent and how much fun I had with these Karin brush markers. They were a lot of fun. Like I actually, my birthday's here in 2 weeks. And I asked my husband for a few more of them because I only got a small set. So I wanted some more colors. So we'll see if I end up getting them or not. But that is what I asked for. And I'm going to hold this up so you guys can check it out in all its glory. I think it turned out super cute. And I showed my friend and she was pretty excited about it. So I'm going to mail that off to her so she can add it to her collection. And then we're going to jump into what probably ends up being my favorite card in the end. Honestly, I'd love to know what you guys think and what your favorite card was, if you don't mind telling me. But this is probably, you guys know I love rainbows. Like I love bright colors so much. Which is kind of funny when you see my Monday card that goes up as my usual Monday card. It's a bit more of a subtle colored card, and it turned out stunning. It's just not quite my same color palette as general. So I did cut down a piece of fog cardstock. So this wasn't included in the kit. This came out of my stash, but I wanted something a bit more neutral for the background just because, of course, you can see my rainbow frogs are quite bright, and I just really didn't want to take away from them. So I just brought out a piece of gray cardstock that this is probably my favorite gray cardstock because it's fairly subtle. And I also brought in hickory smoke to add the clouds into the background again, just because I love clouds so much. I just think they add such a whimsical look to a scene, and I just think that looks really neat. And again, I'm doing the same kind of technique here where I flip the stencil so that I get kind of 2 different looks of clouds. You could, of course, move it and then kind of line it up. I just chose not to do that because I was being a bit lazy, but I just kind of wiped it off and flipped it over, and then I kind of got what I wanted because I shift it so that it's kind of different in every layer. It's not exactly the same, but I think it turned out really pretty. I love this card, how it turned out. Actually, I like all of the cards. They're all different, and some of them are not quite the style I usually do. So I think that turned out pretty interesting. And then of course I had to add some shine to the background, so I flicked on some perfect pearls. I just have mixed up in a little mini mister bottle. Then I'm going to start adhering some stuff down. So I do have my panel here and my slimline base that I made in the beginning. And I'm just going to adhere my panel flat down onto that. I didn't really add any extra dimension to this because my frogs layer on top of each other as they come down in that kind of cascade from one corner to the other. So they are kind of sitting on top of each other. So that kind of added the dimension. And I think with the bold color, they didn't really need it. I think that they turned out stunning, so I kind of didn't really add much to that. And I am going to stamp out my sentiment here. This one says, I hope your birthday is unfrogettable, which is just super cute. And it's actually 2 stamp sets. Unfrogettable is one, and then hope your birthday is another. I just put them together in my Misty and lined them up, and then I stamped them down twice, and then I'm going to start adhering my frogs. So, I mean, they're not perfectly aligned. I guess you could kind of like measure it out and kind of make marks and get them more perfect than I am. I think this pink one actually ends up a little bit cockeyed, but honestly, I don't think it matters, you guys. Like, I think that really, like, the thing you notice the most is how bright and stunning and beautiful these colors are. I think that that's kind of like the eye draw of this specific card, which is why I wanted a very subtle background. And I am kind of just trying to line them up like eye to side of mouth is kind of what my aim was. And I think in the end, I could have shifted them up a smidge. The purple frog ends up a little bit more out of the panel than I was hoping. But honestly, I'll just make this one a custom envelope, and that's all it will mean. Like, so it doesn't even really matter. Like, I think a little bit, I mean, you could trim it. Like, you could trim the pink frog's foot and a little bit of the knee off there, and then the purple frog a little bit more than that. But honestly, I will just make it a custom envelope that it'll fit in, and I'll be happy. So I'm not too concerned about the fact that it hangs out a little bit. And then, of course, I did once again bring in the Moonshine Sequins because I love them. They're my favorite sequin. The one thing I have with them is that the smallest one is a pain to get to stick, simply because it's kind of like a cup and it has a little hole in the middle. So you put glue down, but the glue wants to stick to my wand. So I find that a little bit irritating, but honestly, otherwise, these are by far my favorite sequins. And I'm going to hold this up so you can see all that shine and shimmer in its glory. So I think in the end, this did end up being my favorite card just because I love vibrant colors. And I did stick down that little extra guy. He ended up being extra in the end. So I stuck him down in the inside of this card and then just stamped out another sentiment. And now we're going to jump into the final card of my 5. So this one, it was kind of, I really wanted to use some more pattern paper. I'm going to bring in that soft navy again as well. And this is an A2 card. And I did choose to make a shaker. I like to use the shaker pouches though. Honestly, guys, I don't want to fiddle with foam tape and layers. And I don't like it. It kind of takes the fun out of it for me. So I have a tendency towards like the MFT shaker pouches, which is what I'm going to use in this one. The die that came with this one actually came in a kit last year, I believe, possibly the year before, honestly. I will have it linked down below if it's still available. But yeah, so it's just this little like kind of window piece, and he cuts out little squares that you stick the shaker pouch in. So I like that. That's like a no mess, no stress type of shaker card, and I love it. See here, you just pop this guy in there and you got a shaker panel. Like, you're done. There's no fiddling with foam tape and getting the right amount of layers and then trying to get it to not stick to those layers. Like, there's none of that. And then I brought in my 1/8 inch score tape, and that's how I'm going to adhere it down to my panel. It is going to stick out a small amount because I did cut my yellow piece a bit too close to the edge. But honestly, I just trimmed it off. I just put it back in my paper trimmer and just trimmed off that smidge of excess that's just kind of hanging off of the edge. And I didn't have any problems with that. I mean, it's not a thick plastic, so it's not as if it was a fight. For my own, like, the full pouch shaker cards, I just used leftover stamp package. But for like actual like shaker elements inside of a card, this is kind of my preferred method. Nothing wrong with traditional shaker cards if you can make them and you're good at it. I kind of suck, and it kind of ends up taking the fun out of it for me. So these pouches are just wonderful. So that's kind of what I do here. And see, literally you just like pop that in and there you go. You have a shaker pouch. You're done. Isn't that neat? Like, I just love that idea. So I'm just going to take some scoops of these little sequins that came in the kit here. So I am going to use them, and I am going to put just a couple of Moonshine Sequins in there as well, just again for a little bit of shine in the little pockets. And then that's all I'm going to add. I am going to bring in a piece of acetate out of my stash, just because there is a piece of acetate in this kit, but it was very staticky. And I was worried that all my sequins would then just get stuck to that piece of acetate, and that would be a little frustrating for me. So I just brought in a piece of acetate from my stash and just adhered it down. This is actually my preferred acetate. I haven't tried Simon's new heat resistant acetate yet, so I'm hoping to order some. It was out of stock when I tried, but this is kind of just my go-to acetate in there. Now it's perfect. It's sealed. It's clear. Nothing's going to fall out. Like, it's just awesome. I love it. And I didn't have to fight to line anything up. Like, I love these pockets. I'm going to have to get some more just because I think they create such a fun element that's like no mess, no stress style. And I love it. So I'm just going to adhere everything down to my navy cardstock there. And then I'm going to kind of start to build a bit of a scene. And this one in my head, so you can see that I kind of have the guy on the leaf, the frog laying in the leaf. And then I have kind of the other frog sitting on the back of the leaf. It made me think of floating down a channel. I don't know if you guys ever did that. When I was growing up, there was a channel about an hour down the road from the last place that I lived, and it was just so fun, and you can just like float down the channel. So in my head, I kind of just saw this as like two friends sitting in, like, in this case a leaf, but in like a floaty tube or whatever, and floating down the channel together. And it made me smile. So that is what I was thinking when I kind of adhered these two together. I just thought it was a neat idea. And then they just kind of sit on top of my little shaker window, just the kind of end of the leaf there, because otherwise they fit pretty beautifully into this little kind of scene here. So you're going to see me adhere them down right away, quite like right now. And that's just kind of what I was thinking there. So I don't know. That's what I saw with it. I think that it's super cute. It just looks like he's floating down the river, and then he brought his friend, and his friend's just having a little drink. I love scene cards, guys. I just think it's super, super adorable. And then I did adhere down the little butterflies, and I did stamp out a sentiment. Sadly, that file corrupted, so I couldn't show it to you, but it's the exact same as it was for all the other sentiments being stamped down. So And then I had to add just a few more Moonshine Sequins because, well, why not, really? I mean, at this point, we're going for gold, so we might as well just add them to every card. So yeah, and that is pretty much the fifth card out of this video. I am going to show you a more in-depth look here once I've got it stuck down and I adhere it down to the base of the card, but it's just another A2 side folding card that I think turned out super cute, really. So I would love to know what your favorite card of this set of 5 was, and did you make it to the end of the video? I know it's a bit of a longer video for me, but it's hard to know what to cut out when I'm making 5 cards, just because I don't want anybody to have questions and not know what I was kind of doing or what I was thinking with something. So yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking there. So thank you so much, guys, for stopping by and watching the video and supporting me. I super appreciate every one of you. I'm going to give you a quick in-depth look at this card right here, and then I'm going to show you all 5 of them together. But yeah, I would love if you'd consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do new videos every Monday, and then I do extra videos whenever the chance comes up for me to do them. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate everything that you've done and all the support you've given, and I will see you guys again very soon. Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye.